What's up, everybody? Welcome to a brand new episode of the 5280 podcast on the MHRT Network. I'm your host, as always, Mundungus Creevy, alongside my co-host Cameron Parker and Gage Madrid. And again, Glenn is not here. He's a bum. Boo! He decides that he doesn't like the Broncos as much as he likes other stuff, so he's just not on the show. So if you want to send him evil messages in his Twitter, please do, because it would be funny. So. It has been a busy day. It has been a busy weekend. But before we get into all that, how are you guys doing?
Doing good, man. It's been a very exciting last few days. It was pretty anticlimactic in terms of how it finished, but we had a lot of fun conversations here in Broncos country leading up to the trade deadline. And this roster is in a good spot, even if they didn't make a move at the deadline. We're 7-2, first place in the AFC West still. Life's good here in Broncos country.
Yeah, and it doesn't even change the fact that this team is still a very good football team, right? Doesn't change that. And frankly, we'll dive a little bit too much into it. Excuse me, a little bit later. But frankly, if I'm a Broncos fan, and we talked about it just before we went live, it's like knowing what we know and the past of what we know. The pre-Sean Payton era has been never really a chance for development, right? And we are starting to see the turnover be, what do they say? It was close to 80%, a little bit above 80%. And you're starting to see some development with players, whether we were being very angered at them, even at times in this season. You're still seeing development from them. And then that is really all that matters. If you're getting that development and they cap out of the floor, that's when maybe you start to see them maybe take advantage of some of these trades. But I'm pretty happy with the fact that they are actually confidently showing that they want to develop this team as a whole.
Everybody loves the draft part. People don't really like the develop part that much, especially when you take into account, I preach this all the time on Broncos Syndicate, progression is not linear. There are going to be peaks. There are going to be valleys. And this is a perfect case of it right here. You've got guys like Troy Franklin, been a little bit up and down. Bo Nix, kind of the same thing. Up and down, peaks and valleys. And Broncos country, and I feel like I need to include myself in this as an analyst. We need to have patience with what this team is building. They are ahead of schedule, but I've talked about this. We talked about it in the green room. I've talked about it on the Syndicate. This team is in a position where they can win a Super Bowl right now. And with the AFC being down, Kansas City, Cincinnati, Buffalo a little bit, Baltimore, they've got a golden opportunity here. This clearly sends a message that they believe in what they have, and they think what they have in-house can get the job done.
Yeah. And as we dig into all that, make sure you head on over to the MHRT Network YouTube channel. Hit that like, subscribe, thumbs up. We got shows Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then the neighborhood on game days. So make sure you tune into the neighborhood on Thursday. There's also Gage Madrid hosting Broncos Syndicate. Make sure you go over to that YouTube channel as well. Hit the like, subscribe, thumbs up. You have Cameron Parker hosting mainly Broncos on Wednesday nights on the MHRT Network. So make sure you tune into that show as well. Glenn has nothing because he doesn't ever show up, so he don't
Lame.
Don't
even go to his Twitter
lame.
account.
I was gonna say one of
shit over there either.
I was gonna say one of these times he's gonna surprise us, go on airplane mode, and then just show up on a live stream while
he doesn't mean I have to let him in.
I've done that. I've surprised a couple of times.
It happens.
I wasn't gonna be there, and then I showed up.
So obviously, as was just referenced, the big thing happening today was the trade deadline pass. Now, obviously, the Broncos didn't do anything. Like we thought they might. There were rumors and coughing. There were rumors and discussions about the Broncos potentially going in on wide receiver or tight end or linebacker, but nothing came of it. There was also the big talk about Jalen Waddle and how people would want Denver to trade.
A lot of smoke there.
A lot of smoke there. And then we find out they wanted a first and a third. I personally wouldn't have. I know you guys said you would, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But we'll go through all the trades that happened just today, maybe yesterday. We're not going to go through all of them because the board is a lot.
The big ones.
Yeah, we'll just start from the top and work our way down. So the Jets traded for a defensive back, Yasir Taylor, and they gave the Chargers a 2028 conditional 7th round draft pick. On top of that, the Chargers, and I'm really just going over the ones that kind of affect us.
Yeah.
The Chargers made a trade with the Saints for offensive tackle Trevor Penning. The New Orleans Saints get a 2027 6th round pick. Wow, that okay. Jets again. The Cowboys have traded with the Jets. The Cowboys get Quinnen Williams, defensive tackle. The Jets get defensive tackle Mazi Smith, 2026 2nd round draft pick, and a 2027 1st round draft pick. Nobody cares about that one. It's the Browns. Let's see here. Oh, this was one that Gage wanted. Rashid Shaheed was somebody that Gage was really interested in, made videos on it. He does end up getting traded, but he goes to the Seattle Seahawks. The Saints get a 2026 4th round pick and a 2026 5th round pick. That would have been worth it for Rashid Shaheed.
I strongly agree with that. I'm very disappointed, actually, they didn't make that move. That's probably more disappointing than Waddle. I would have made the Waddle move because it would have been an all-in move, but I'd argue the Rashid Shaheed move would have been an all-in move as well because he can play that Z receiver position. You would have Mims and you'd have Franklin as your slot players, Bryant as your inline blocker and backup X player, and then Sutton as your main X player. Then you've got Ingram doing whatever he does, kind of slot too, and a little bit inline, some backfield out wide. He does everything. So yeah, that's probably my biggest disappointment is they didn't get a wide receiver of that nomenclature, and Rashid Shaheed would have been probably the best value there. But ultimately, he goes to Seattle. I think that's a good landing spot for him. Clint Kubiak being up there. He used to be his OC down in New Orleans last year. So, yeah, that one does sting a little bit.
Yeah, and you almost wonder because they said that there were a couple rumored teams that were in on it. Makes you wonder if it was between Denver and Seattle that were those landing spots, and it might have just been where Shaheed was just kind of facilitating it. Where if you guys are going to trade me to Denver or trade me to Seattle, just in the sense of reunite me with Clint Kubiak and. Trade me to Sean Payton, where there's possibly some familiarity, over there. So I just think that it's one where between both of those deals, it's one where they kind of missed out. And financially, draft picks wise, probably one that might have been a little bit easier and probably easier to predict too. They're going to be adding anyone. It's more often than not been a Saints player. So it's just it's definitely been one that's, would have been really nice, for sure.
Yeah. All right. Then we have, and this one I bring up because this could potentially affect us in the playoffs, and it's totally not worth it. The Jets, again, trade Sauce Gardner to the Colts. So Indy gets Sauce Gardner, and the Jets receive wide receiver Adonai Mitchell, and a 2026 first round pick and a 2027 first round pick. Not worth it. That is way too much.
I mean, there will be people. And let me just start it with this way. Do I think Sauce Gardner is a good cornerback? Yes. But do I think he's also very overrated and has been overrated because of the East Coast bias? Yes. I do. And I just think that it's one where because of that, I don't think he's worth 2 first round. Just put it this way. If Sauce Gardner is worth 2 first round picks, what is Pat Surtain worth? It just ask it 4, 5, so it's just, and I think that the fact that you even threw a player in there, in AD Mitchell, I think is just even the other side of this. That's crazy. So I just think that it's one where I'm surprised the Jets made that move. given how much it appeared like he loved New York, he loved the Jets. And if there was anything to kind of signaled they are on a fire sale, it was that sauce thing. I will say there's two things on this. You don't make that trade if you're Indianapolis, if you believe in your quarterback. That is 100% true. But there's a side of it where I'm like, that is a bold strategy, Cotton. I mean, believing in your quarterback is one thing. But believing in a quarterback that has never shown it for 2 or 3 consecutive seasons is a wise choice, is a very wise choice, because we aren't in the playoffs yet. We aren't in a position where Daniel Jones has proven, even in the postseason, where he can actually even function in the postseason or even the playoffs. So it is a very bold strategy for that to happen, to where those 2 first-round draft picks that they did send the New York Jets, frankly, if all things come crashing down and burning for the Indianapolis Colts and Daniel Jones, would not be the least bit surprised if that is a lower first-round draft pick than people actually think.
Yeah, I'm pretty much with you on everything you said there. Like, you've got the Colts side of things where Sauce Gardner, yes, good corner. Is he a top 5 corner in the NFL? I would say no, he's not. He's like a top 12 to 15 corner, and giving up 2 first-round picks for that player, it's definitely a sign of confidence in your roster and your quarterback, like you said, Cam. And with Daniel Jones, he's always had that streakiness to him where you kind of worry, is he going to regress back to the mean and go back to, if not full-on New York Daniel Jones, not nearly what we're seeing from him this year? You know, there's always that possibility. So this definitely signals that they believe in Daniel Jones long-term as their quarterback. As far as the New York Jets are concerned, this was a great move because they're not going to go anywhere until they get a quarterback in the building. Yep. Darren Muji, their GM, who came from Denver, he knows that more than anybody. You've got to put all of your chips on the table to make sure you get a quarterback and make sure you surround that quarterback with pieces to be successful. And with all the draft capital that they have, and presumably the money they're going to have here pretty soon with some of these big contracts coming off their books, they're going to have a lot of resources to do this. And Darren Muji, he saw what the Broncos did around Bo Nix, and I imagine he's going to follow a very similar blueprint. You weren't going to move anywhere with the current core that you had, because you're probably 3-4 years away if you're the New York Jets, and by that point, these players will be older, they'll be expensive, their contracts will be up. So I can see this being a really good move for the New York Jets.
No, Jeff. No, Glenn again. No. He's a bum. Never sell him your tickets again, unless he's taking me, and then you can sell him the tickets. That's fine.
Or me.
Yeah, or Gage. Was Miami asking too much for Waddle? They were asking a first and a third.
Actually, I've heard some different things. I've heard first and a player. I've heard just like first and, maybe even another pick. Yeah, they were asking.
Yeah, I think what I heard was first and a third, or a first and a player that is equal to a third.
Yeah.
So, which I would have given up, but again, man, I can understand the Broncos having a more long-term approach to things as well.
Yeah, and I do think that does bring up the conversation of, does the coaching staff, since they didn't make the trade for Jalen Waddle or Raheed Shaheed or any wide receiver, does that mean that the coaches are confident in the development of the wide receiver core that they have right now?
Let me ask this, because I asked Gage this question, and I will pose it to you guys. Like, obviously, we are talking relative to the room that we have now, right? But I think I saw a stat that actually was posted like tonight. There was the projection of Courtland Sutton. Courtland Sutton, I believe, is projected to have just over 1,000 yards receiving. So his typical 1,000 yard season. But Troy Franklin, on the other hand, is projected with, yes, all those drops, is still projected to have close to or right around 800 yards receiving. would you take a wide receiver room where your top two targets are at 800 yards or even close to 1,000 yards and another wide receiver that is right at 1,000 yards? If it was me, given everything that we didn't maybe know about Waddle before then, I would take that any day of the week. And that's why we say, yeah, there's been some drops at times with Troy Franklin, but he is progressing actually at a rate that, frankly, the Broncos should have expected when they traded up for him. And so you're starting to kind of see that with Franklin. So I would very much take the 800 yards projection and the 1,000 yards for Cortland Sutton for sure.
Yeah, my response to that was, in a vacuum, I would absolutely take that. But I've said this, you kind of need that Z wide receiver. And do you feel like Troy Franklin or Marvin Mims is going to develop into that role for you long term? Clearly, they're sending the message that, yes, they do. I don't have any reason to not trust them. They've been more right than they've been wrong. So at the end of the day, they've given me enough confidence to be like, all right, let's go ahead and take a deep breath here. They've got this.
Yeah. So let's go into the next one. And this will probably be, one of the last ones. And this one has to do with the game coming up in a couple days. The Broncos versus the Raiders. The Raiders just completely throwing in the towel, trading Jacoby Myers to the Jacksonville Jaguars, who finally have a good wide receiver on the roster. So the Jaguars get Jacoby Myers, and the Raiders get a 2026 4th round and a 2026 6th round.
If you guys are unfamiliar, this man right here has some of the most biased hatred against Travis Hunter that I have ever seen.
I got to gaslight a little bit.
Has some of the craziest friggin' takes. He refuses to acknowledge the talent that Travis Hunter possesses at both the wide receiver and cornerback position. So any opinion that this man has on the receiving core of the Jacksonville Jaguars is automatically invalid.
I mean, you can say what you want, but as it stands, Travis Hunter is the 3rd best wide receiver on the team and the 4th best corner on the team. So, do I think he's talented? Absolutely he's talented. Was he worth the 2nd pick? Nope.
I don't know. There's
and he's definitely not going to be an all-pro. He's on IR now.
That is, God created morons, right? As equal as he created smart people. So, so it's one where unfortunately God created a moron when it came to Mike.
Listen, when we get to the end of the season, you both are going to be eating some shit. Okay. So
no, absolutely. No, we are not doing this whole gauging stuff out of the first season out of a rookie season.
That's the deal Gage made, not me.
I'm just telling you.
He got fucking hurt, Mike.
So
he got hurt.
That was not so.
That
means nothing.
You're also kicking a guy while he's down, and that ain't cool.
Everything. Bullshit. It means nothing. That means everything.
That means nothing to the deal that we made. That means nothing.
Wow. No.
No. Because what was the biggest knock on Travis Hunter going both ways? He's gonna get hurt. Guess what? We never had
that conversation.
That was never.
Not us. National media.
No, that was not.
Anybody that
Mike,
covered
we're
Travis
talking
Hunter.
about the bet that you and I made.
Right.
Strictly.
And you said that if he is not an all-pro by the end of his rookie year, if he is not an all-pro by the end of his rookie year, you will tell me that I was right. There was no injury guarantees in there.
Fine. You were right. Are you happy?
A little bit.
I could care less. He's wrong. So I could care less.
You can say whatever you want.
Hey. I'm not saying I feel that that's true. I just said that he was right. There may have been no meaning behind that statement whatsoever.
I just find it interesting, though, with how great Travis Hunter is, they have to go trade for Jacoby Myers.
Because he's hurt!
This is too much fun. Gaslighting you guys is awesome. I love this.
Oh, shit.
All right, so obviously that means for the Raiders, they no longer have Jacoby Myers.
Nope.
All they have is Ashton Genty and Brock Bowers. That's it.
Who's really good. Brock Bowers is really good.
Honestly, I will take Brock Bowers versus Jahdae Barron all day.
Got him.
That's what I hope Barron says to Bowers.
Got him.
Yeah, that was a visual representation. That fly is going to be Brock Bowers after Barron.
Because my assumption is the Broncos are going to do the same thing with Brock Bowers they've been doing all season with tight ends. Jahdae Barron with Huafunga over top or Brandon Jones over top.
This is where I think it's going to be curious because we'll talk about the game maybe in a little bit and preview it, but this is where I think finally having Dre Greenlaw, this might be the point in time you see the uptick of Greenlaw and his snaps. Because as much as we talk about Jahdae Barron, the injury of Pat Surtain, I think is going to force the hand to where for one, you shouldn't. But like it's going to force the hand where they probably will have Dre Greenlaw on Brock Bowers a fair amount of time in that game. So I think it's one where they're kind of saving it to where, maybe they want to use Greenlaw at times. And I think they will still use Barron because I think if there's one thing that we can agree on is no news is good news when it comes to not hearing a guy's name. And Barron is having actually a really good rookie year. Mm-hmm. And he really has kind of become in that short amount of time, that tight end eraser at the early part of his career. So I think it's going to be a blend of everything when you do kind of have Huafunga over the top. You'll have Barron, lined up at times with Brock Bowers. But I think the Dre Greenlaw angle, I think, is where we're going to see a little bit of that some too. Not number 49, who just lets people go, with a $200 passing go feature, so it's going to be, it has to be Greenlaw and it has to be Jahdae Barron for me.
Yep. I completely agree. And when it comes to Greenlaw, he's going to be pretty busy dealing with Ashton Genty, I feel like, because we all know what Genty can bring both as a runner and as a receiver out of the backfield. He can do a little bit of everything for you. And then they've also got Raheem Mostert there as well, who's no slouch out of the backfield. He has had some really strong games against the Denver Broncos. So I imagine Dre Greenlaw is going to be very busy in that regard. I also think Talanoa Huafunga is going to play a huge part in taking away Brock Bowers. But yeah, we've seen Jahdae Barron be the tight end killer this year, and I'm hoping that he continues to do that in this game. If they sell out to stop Brock Bowers and they sell out to stop the run, this Raiders offense can get pretty one-dimensional. And when you combine the fact that their offensive line isn't good, Denver's got the ability to get pressure. That's when Geno Smith can throw some of those, what the hell are you doing, Geno, type of interceptions. So I feel like the Broncos are going to have a really good time in this game. Again, we'll talk about that a little bit more later in this show, I feel like. But this Broncos team matches up well.
They really do.
And then the last one I got is just a familiar name. It happened yesterday. The Baltimore Ravens have traded for linebacker Draymond Jones. And the Titans receive a 2026 conditional 5th-round pick.
You know what's crazy about Draymond Jones? When he was here in Denver, he was an interior defensive lineman.
He was.
Now he's an edge rusher playing outside linebacker. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah. And it kind of goes to show you that, was he playing out of position? Was he not playing out of position? It also goes to show you we were right about Zach Allen and not Draymond Jones.
Yes.
It's just there's just so much to unpack with Draymond Jones. But I think that it's one where it's also kind of a shrewd move for Baltimore. But they were really banged up. They were really banged up on that defense and defensive line. So just kind of an interesting move, and it feels to a certain extent like a Ravens type of move.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I mean, there are just these well-run organizations that find these value trades out there. Baltimore, Philadelphia, they just find these deals out there that maybe some of the NFL's like, I don't know, but they almost seem to make it work every time, Yeah. They don't fuck up in that sense.
Yeah. Well, frankly, I was going to say the most shrewd move to me was once again the Eagles, because the trade of Jalen Phillips to the Philadelphia Eagles was like one of the most shrewd moves of the entire trade deadline, because like you're talking about an edge rusher that is as freaky of an edge rusher if you have him in a good room as anyone in a room, to where it's like you're talking about a player that is like Hassan Reddick when they added him. Yeah, I mean, it was a really good ad for a room. And then once the pieces start coming into place for the edge rush room, and they're healthy, and you have Phillips back there possibly as just a complementary piece at that point, that is a really good room with Phillips as a complementary piece.
Yeah. All right. So we go from the trade deadline over to an injury that impacts the Denver Broncos in a couple weeks. Jaden Daniels dislocated his elbow in the game on, was it Sunday night?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was
Sunday night.
A very, very unfortunate coaching mismanagement by Dan. Don't give me that crap.
No, Mike, you don't get a freebie here.
Did you guys watch Nick Ferguson's video on this?
Yeah, cool. Dan Quinn mismanaged this entire game because, like, I did, but I'm just saying Dan Quinn mismanaged that game because, like, we could talk about, how the Broncos game, the Broncos were, losing at a certain point. Should they have pulled Bo Nix at a certain point? They didn't. The fact is, there were far more cracks in that game between the Broncos and the Giants for them to win that game than the game that they had, Seattle and Washington. And the fact was, Washington wasn't even moving the ball. Dan Quinn mismanaged it to where he is actually keeping Jaden in that game. And frankly, it may as well do more harm in his career going forward as a quarterback, to where it's going to turn him into RG3 down there in Washington if this thing keeps up with the amount of injuries that are piling on for Jaden. So, like, it is a very bad situation for Washington. I'm glad Dan Quinn owned up to it. He admitted he was wrong. That's the most important part here, is that he admitted he was wrong. And, like, it is a bad situation. So going forward, I hope that when Jaden is healthy, and I pray that he's healthy, they don't do that situation ever again.
I know Dan won't, because he's a smart dude. He's going to learn from this mistake. And quite frankly, the most important thing here is the long-term health of Jaden Daniels. I've seen some Twitter doctors out there say that his season might not be done in theory, but if Washington's already out of the playoffs by the time he's ready to return, then I don't think we're going to see him back this season. There's no reason to rush him back. So at least it's not a long-term injury that's going to have significant ramifications like RG3, but it definitely sucks, and it is going to impact this upcoming game for the Broncos against the Commanders, because Daniels is probably not going to be ready for that particular game. So Marcus Mariota will be the starting quarterback. It also would not surprise me at all if this game is flexed out of Sunday Night Football. This might be an 11 a.m. Mountain Time, 1 p.m. Eastern Time kickoff, or maybe a 2:30 kickoff. It would not surprise me at all, because the whole luster behind this game was Bo Nix versus Jaden Daniels. They might scratch Denver's back and give them a primetime game later on, but this is because of Washington, not because of Denver. Full clarity there. I do think it's a possibility this game gets flexed out.
The only thing I'd say to that is, if I'm not mistaken, they would have to flex it this week, because I think they have 2 weeks notice. They have to give it a 2 weeks notice where they flex it, because and so if anything, they would have to flex it now this week.
They got until the 9th.
And I don't know if they will. So yeah, it might be too soon as far as flexing it out. So unfortunately, I don't see that being flexed out right now.
I mean, it's definitely a possibility, though, because of how Washington's playing, and there are some other games that are a little bit more primetime worthy on that slate. But it also depends on what games the networks protect, because CBS will usually protect their main game. Fox will usually protect their main game. So it would have to be some sort of like tier 2 game that's worthy of Sunday Night Football. Maybe they do keep the Broncos in place, but like I said, if they do flex it out, I would not be surprised if later down the line, possibly that Green Bay game maybe gets flexed into Sunday Night Football.
Mhm.
Okay.
Or maybe even Jacksonville.
I was going to comment, but Ken's being kind of a dill hole, so I'm not going to.
Now, give me your 2 cents. Give me your 2
Well,
cents.
me too, because you're not going to like it.
No,
Because I agree with a lot of what Nick Ferguson said, right? Like, we're all talking about Dan Quinn and how he didn't sit down Jaden Daniels, but we say nothing about when Sam Darnold and the Seahawks were up. Like, what was it, 38-6, and both starting quarterbacks still in. Then you didn't say nothing. You didn't say nothing when the Bills were up 40-6 on the Jets, and both of their starting quarterbacks is in. No, it's just when Dan Quinn is making the call. You also don't blame Jaden Daniels when he put his arm down. You don't put your arm down. That's what's going to happen.
That I agree
Every
with.
quarterback is taught not to do that, but everybody blamed Dan Quinn. Okay,
Wrong.
done. Now I'm done.
Now I'm done. Either Brady Quinn.
Clearly, this man has a bias towards Dan Quinn. I will remind you that this man wanted the Broncos to hire Dan fucking Quinn over Sean Payton.
Yes, I did.
But
Quinn,
but I'm not wrong either.
3-6 or 3-5, whatever they are.
After they went to the NFC Championship last year.
But
now what? And I'm not wrong. Everything that I just said was in Nick Ferguson's video. So this isn't coming from me. I just agree with what he said.
I disagree with Nick here then too. I respect Nick and I respect you too, but I disagree with both your asses.
But the thing that I would agree with though is like I would just say that like taking Sam Darnold out though, and that at that point of the game, that's one where I would very much see that, where I could agree with that. The game was.
But at the same time, right? Let's say that Dan Quinn takes Jaden Daniels out. Oh, he quit on the team. He wasn't going to win that game, so he quit. He benched Jaden Daniels. He wasn't even going to try. The Broncos have proven time again that even if you're down a bunch in the fourth quarter, you can still win the game. Right?
Mike, we're talking about a 38-7 game.
I'm just saying. If he benches Jaden Daniels, you and I engage. We all know that the next day everybody's going to be on Dan Quinn for quitting in the game.
No,
I don't think
liar, lies and slander.
I don't think they would.
Lies.
I can guarantee you, I would not, because it's a much big difference between 25-8 or whatever the Broncos game was, 26-8, whatever. And 31-7.
Okay, let me ask you this question. Let's say Jaden Daniels doesn't put his arm down and gets sacked, doesn't get hurt, and continues to play the game. Are you still gonna have the same energy for him being in that game?
He still shouldn't be in that game.
Okay, then why aren't we talking about Sean McDermott and the Bills?
Same thing. They shouldn't be in the game.
Mm-hmm.
But they were.
Once the game is gone, should not be in the game.
When the game is won. Look, how often do you see it in the NBA? I don't like the NBA as much, but like, how often do you see it in the NBA when the team is up like 20 or 30, like in the NBA, and there's like 5 minutes left in the game, and they just start unloading their bench? Like, that's waving the white flag. Like, and the NFL just needs to start doing it a little bit more, where they're taking out the they need to be taking out the quarterback where the game is very clearly lost. And so yes, it would have been the exact same energy where they should have taken Jaden out, even if he wasn't hurt, because they were getting just boat raced by Seattle the entire game. And frankly, this is not to make it a true Jaden thing. I am very concerned if I'm a Washington fan right now, because they bought basically all these pieces to be veteran pieces for this team, and they have amounted to crap.
No depth.
Like, for that team. So, I mean, it has been an absolute disappointment from start to finish. And Daniels, Yeah, he was hurt, but he's also not having. He is truly having this sophomore slump that everybody thought Bo Nix was having.
That was really loud. Just
Just
letting you know.
Cool. Good. I'm glad it was. Bo Nix is not having the sophomore slump that people thought he was. Jaden Daniels is having the sophomore slump that everybody thought Bo Nix was having. Cough, cough, cough. But anyway.
Gonna put these up here.
But anyway, I don't know. It's just Washington is in a very unfortunate situation.
But not because of Dan Quinn. Okay, so let's dig into the Broncos and Texans game. The Broncos pull out the 6th straight win of the season in another fourth quarter comeback. Broncos win 18-15 over the Houston Texans. What?
Am I back?
Yeah, you're back.
Yeah,
okay.
I didn't know you left.
I reset my internet that way I wouldn't drop when I was talking.
We got Bo Nix, 18-37, 173 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Only took 1 sack, which is awesome. The running game didn't really get going. Dobbins had 61 yards. Harvey had 5. Nix had 36 yards rushing. And then you got Harvey actually as the leading receiver with 51 yards, 1 touchdown. Cortland Sutton with another touchdown. And Gage, you were talking about Troy Franklin and the drops. 10 targets, 4 catches. But you also had Sutton with 6 targets and 1 catch. So it just, like, again, you go through the first 3 quarters of the game, and the Broncos offense just has nothing. And I don't understand. It doesn't make any sense to me. Please help me understand what is going on. I don't get it.
I'm not going to lie. I've largely already flushed this game because we're on a short week. I've got my game preview for the Raiders coming up tomorrow, but I have watched the film on this game, and what I've seen, at least in terms of what's constipating this offense, is up front, you're seeing a lot of loaded fronts. You're seeing a lot of like 5-man fronts, 8, 9-man boxes by Houston, trying to sell out to stop the run because they know that's what Denver does well. They're trying to force Denver to be a drop-back passing team. And be it Bo Nix missing guys, receivers not getting open, receivers dropping the ball, Bo Nix having crappy footwork, the offensive line missing a block here or there. Like, everything is part of the problem here. And Sean Payton defaults to his easy button, which is the screen passes, the perimeter plays. The blocking on those was a little bit better in this game. I will definitely say that. But overall, man, it feels like they're still having to lean into these crutchy type plays to keep their offense afloat, and it's just not sustainable. At the end of the day, we've got to be better as a drop back passing team. It starts with the quarterback, but it also starts with receivers. Like, it's everything. Like I said, it's not just one exclusive problem. It's a multi-layered issue, despite what all the Bo Nix haters want to say. Bo Nix is part of the problem, but I'd argue he's far from the main problem.
Yeah, Bo Nix is number 2 in drops in the NFL. I think part of the issue is Sean trying to force his multiple personnel groups and his tight formations.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the thing with the tight formations. That's something that's really come into the NFL in like the past 7-8 years. Sean McVay has popularized those. I want them to utilize more motion and shifts off of these tight formations and incorporate that next level and that next wrinkle of the offense, if you will. But when it comes to the personnel shifting, Sean Payton has said point blank, he is not changing who he is in that regard. He knows that it can create mismatch nightmares for the defense in terms of not knowing how to match them up. I understand that Broncos country and even analysts out there are frustrated with it, but Sean Payton has a rhyme and reason for why he does it, and he's made it very clear he's not going away from it.
Yeah, and I think that, it was just, I think it's a case of where any smart person with a brain going into this game should have realized this was going to be a dogfight. Whether you're a Bo Nix supporter, whether you're a Bo Nix hater, if you're a Bo Nix hater, this would have been perfect for you. where you're, just because it was set up where it was a number one defense in the entire NFL. Of course he was going to be struggling, right? Of course he was going to be struggling. What was just so frustrating was the lack of commitment to a running game. And that is where, obviously statistically it lined up to where, they probably, ran the ball a little bit more than they did.
23 runs.
Right. But I'm just saying, like in the fourth or in the first and second quarter, you have got to commit to running the football even just a little bit more. 4 carries for Dobbins in the first half. Are you kidding me? Yeah. They have to be able to commit to a running game. And frankly, this is something that we've said time and time again when it comes to Bo Nix. They have to utilize his legs in the pocket on either designed runs, or Bo has to realize that if there are lanes where he can take off and run, he's got to be able to do that. And I think that is the area where he has to find, and I think that when we talk about the phantom pockets, I think, Tim Jenkins talks about that, the phantom pockets. That's why I think we're seeing a strong progression of Bo in the pocket, right? Like we are actually seeing a good progression of him in the pocket. But we are still seeing some times where he's stepping up into a phantom pocket, kind of creating it for himself. That said, though, I am taking a quarterback that is going to win in the fourth quarter over any quarterback in the National Football League. You give me a clutch quarterback over anyone, I'm taking that 10 times out of 10. And the fact that we have Bo in the second year, and frankly, it isn't just Bo, it's the entire team. The fact we are having games like this in the second season of a young quarterback and an offense like this, that will do so much for the sports psychology of this team and how they're going to grow as a team and how they can win ball games as a team in just year 2 of this kind of offense under Sean Payton. This will do so much for that team. And the fact they're able to come through and win so many games like this is going to mean so much come playoff time, because that game specifically against the Houston Texans defense is going to be one you do see come playoff time. And they were able to come through in the clutch and get what they needed to and get the field goal that they needed to. You are going to have playoff atmospheres like that. It was a playoff atmosphere type thing in Houston, and they won.
Yep. Yeah, and I think like one of my biggest concerns, and it might be a couple things as far as Bo goes. Obviously, we know the wide receiver drops. That's been an issue. That's something I think they'll figure out with time. Like we said, they didn't trade for a wide receiver because they believe in the wide receivers they have on the roster. I also still think the offensive line is still figuring out the new blocking scheme. The run game will get better. But the one thing I'm concerned with Bo is not so much the overthrows. Like he'll figure that out, but the lack of running outside when he could run, and the inaccuracy on the throws on the run. Because last year he was great with those, and this year he just seems to be missing them.
Mm-hmm. I would definitely agree with that assessment. And there are certain plays out there where you're not going to be able to set your feet. You've got to find a way to make the throw accurately on the run. And that was one of the biggest traits for Bo coming out. That's why they drafted him, because they thought he was a good runner, or a good thrower on the run, I should say. And yeah, that's something he hasn't really done well this year. Hopefully that improves with time. We will find out. But I also think that Bo's internal clock needs to go off. Like, he needs to take off and run a little bit more when these plays aren't there. He needs to make something happen on his own. He's got that play creation ability. And I do love that the Broncos leaned more into that this week. They called some designed runs for him. They called 2 of the quarterback sweeps. That designed run, go look at Alex Smith's rushing touchdown against the New Orleans Saints in the playoffs. It's that same play call. You've got a pulling guard. You've got, or a pulling tackle even. You had Joe Staley leading the way in that 49ers play. You've got Bowles leading the way in these plays. Like, yeah, man, it's like literally exact same play. So I want to see more of that.
The other one is like the quarterback. It's a pass, but it's that long rollout that got the 25-yard scramble. Mm-hmm. It's like, it's not a quarterback design run, but it was almost like, to a certain extent, the same play, a little bit deeper. but it was like the play against Tampa last year. But like that is one where he's got to recognize that free lane and take off. And I think that for me, it's like that's the kind of stuff. And I wonder if when Steve Spagnuolo watches tape of Bo Nix, I think that's the kind of plays where he watches that, and it's like those are the Josh Allen plays that make you jump out of your screen. Because that is the type of stuff that you see from Josh Allen, where if there's a free lane, screw the pass. I am just dipping because I think people need to remember, and Bronco fans should know this, but like Bo Nix is arguably a top 5 scrambling quarterback in the National Football League right now. Like, I think him in the open, I mean, even the Baltimore players in that blowout talked about how, Bo was so much faster than they gave him credit for. And I think that, Sean really does have to lean into that, but Bo also has to as well. And I think Sean talked about that after the game, where they need to kind of work on that clock, and really kind of know when he needs to take off and when not to take off. But yeah, I think nonetheless, the fact we're seeing this now still in a 7-2 team where they're winning as a team, despite some deficiencies here and there, where it's been you see the complete games at times, but not a stretch of complete games, gives you hope that, man, we have won 6 in a row, and it's just it still hasn't looked pretty. And I also want to remind people the Chiefs were 11-0 last year in 1-score games. That means that some of those 1-score games were against teams they frankly should have blown out, and they won in 1-score fashion. So the Broncos have won 1-score games that they probably should have lost, or frankly should have won by a bigger margin. And you could argue neither team, Broncos or Houston, should have won that game on Sunday. And the Broncos, the better team, came out on top.
Yeah, and this is one of the things that I have to keep reminding people, especially Bill, yes, Bill, on the neighborhood, is like you have to remember to put blame where blame goes, right? Like you can't look at a ball hitting a wide receiver in the hands and them dropping it and say, "Ow, that was a bad throw from Bo." No, right. Stop it. It hit the receiver in the hands. They get paid millions of dollars a year to catch the ball, right? So if you take the 10 targets, 4 catches for Troy Franklin, and you make 7 of those instead, right? How much better does Bo Nix look? How much better does the offense look? You take those 6 targets and the 1 catch for Sutton, and he catches 4 of those. How much better does the offense look? How much better does Bo look, right? Like it drives me a little nuts that everybody's hating on Bo for things that aren't even his fault.
That's why the stat when they say that Bo Nix leads the National Football League or he's second in National Football League in drops, that is not a Bo Nix stat.
No.
That is more so to the that is more so the fact that you have a wide receiver group that is still struggling with drop issues. That's all that means. But for the Bo Nix haters or Joel Moron or whatever the guy's name is on Twitter, like they're just going to cling to the idea of like the drops being a Bo Nix thing. And, I guess when you have a certain shtick that you need to sit to a certain shtick, you got to keep the shtick. I will say this about Bo Nix, and this is a lesson for everybody. Don't tweet your opinions about Bo Nix during the game because he will make you pay during the game.
Yeah. So one of the other things I kind of want to get an update on is with our offensive line, right? Like there's not a lot to say about Garrett Bowles. I believe he's the best left tackle in the league. Again, that's just me. You got Quinn Miners. I think he's the best guard in the league. That's just me. Then you have McGlinchey, top 5 right tackle in the league, I think. Then you've got Palcho and Wattenberg. Now, Wattenberg, we said, was getting better, right? I didn't really have an issue with Palcho. And again, they only allowed 1 sack through that whole game.
Yep.
Are they actually playing as well as we think they are, or are their mistakes being covered up by other people or by coaching?
In the case of Wattenberg, I would say some of it is him getting covered up. Like Wattenberg still has his issues with his snap timing and with his blocking. Like he had some blown run blocks in this game, had some blown pass blocks in this game, and actually contributed to a couple of drives stalling out because he couldn't hold up on his blocking. So I'd say that's still been an issue. As far as Palcho is concerned, I really have nothing to say. He's been great. Considering he's a backup player, especially, like, he's been pretty much everything we could hope for. He's stabilized that position. The fact that we're not talking about the left guard position right now is good news. That means that he's playing well, and he's at least brought a decent level of stability there. So, yeah, I have no comments with Palcho. He's been great.
Frankly, it's actually, I'm going to just say this front and center, and actually for first time on a microphone. I think it's at the point in time, because of how successful Palcho has been at guard, that in the offseason, we need to try Palcho at center. I'm just throwing that out there right now. That we need to that we actually need to see if Palcho can do it. Because look, he might actually end up being your high ceiling version of Calvin Throckmorton, because of how he's playing, right? Because Mundungus Throckmorton can play anywhere, tackle, guard, center. He can play really everywhere. So like you might actually have it to where Throckmorton ends up being a bit expendable, or a little bit more valuable because of all that versatility. But if you have a guy in Palcho that you can just throw there at center, and we know he's a little bit athletic. So, I mean, like, and he's clearly shown that he's a pretty solid, left guard at this point. I would not be, I would not be the least bit surprised if, that's a thing for him.
So let me ask you this question, and then Gage, you can,
go ahead.
Would it make more sense to move Palcho over to center, or would it make more sense to keep him at left guard, get out from under Ben Powers' contract, and draft a center?
Powers is not a problem. He's been good.
No, I'm just saying strictly on the money side of it, getting out from under his contract.
There's no reason to. Like, we've got the money to spend. We might as well spend it there. I don't hate trying Palcho at center at all. There's obviously the most important thing with the center position. Can you snap it? We don't know if he can snap it. That is the big thing. But why not? He's got the athleticism. He's a mauler up front in the run game. He's a smart player. Everybody raves about his cerebralness. So I think he'd be able to handle that rather well. I do believe that Denver is going to put some resources towards the center position, be it free agency or the draft. They need their long-term center. Just like they've got their quarterback of the future, hopefully, they need their center of the future, and they need to develop that relationship long-term. I don't believe that player's on the roster right now unless Palcho can show that he can do that. Another scenario, and Denver hasn't really entertained this, but it's possible Quinn Miners, maybe move him to center and then have Powers and Palcho be your two starting guards.
Yeah, I think at the beginning part of his years, the first and second year, that had been kind of a huge thing about moving him to center, because he's done it.
Was he a center, or was he always a guard?
He flipped between center and guard. Okay. And actually, Wattenberg, if he doesn't make it out at center, he's a guard. So Forsythe was really the one until he got into the NFL where he kind of saw him take some guard snaps, because in college he was a pure center. And I wouldn't even rule him out, by the way, Forsythe, even taking the center position. Obviously, the reason why I like the Palcho idea is the cerebralness and everything that Gage outlined. Plus, he's coming from the Brett Bielema School of Offensive Linemen. And if there's anything we know about the Brett Bielema School of Offensive Linemen, they are good NFL players. Good, long 8 to 10 NFL players. So I would not rule out the idea that Palcho being a center. And I do agree. I think he's a legit right tackle. But the problem is he's now shown to be a legit left guard too. So you might as well get a chance to see what he can possibly do at center. But I think that given the state of the money that they're going to have, which is probably around $50 million, if not more, given some moves, I wouldn't rule out the center position, of course, when it comes to, adding, players. But I don't know. Just the one thing we know is the offensive line and how good they're playing. Do you want to actually kind of hamper it in the sense of like specifically how good Bo has been playing with that offensive line and everything else? And so it's one where it's just the things you factor in.
Yeah. All right. So that covers the Broncos and the Texans. Now we need to get into, before we were on here for way too long, the Broncos and the Raiders. Now, I do want to bring this comment up just here a little bit because I mentioned that at least the Broncos have pass catchers to throw the ball to, because Jack said that he wasn't worried about any of our pass catchers, and that's fine. You know, he says you have pass catcher better than Bowers. Sutton is the Jacoby Myers wide receiver number 2, not a pure number 1, but the best wide receiver on the team. I mean, yeah, we have like 6 number 2 wide receivers. You have a tight end. There's a difference. We can cover your tight end. You can't cover all of ours.
Well, I was going to say, because I am so scared of, Caillou Blue Kelly and Jeremy Chin and Isaiah Polomau and Eric Stokes and Darnay Holmes. No, those are those corners. Oh. I'm so scared of those corners, man. So scared of those corners.
At this point in time, we've all kind of had our criticisms about Courtland Sutton on this channel and on this podcast, but he's proven at this point he is a number 1 receiver. He just is. And quite frankly, you've got a number of guys in this offense. Franklin, Mims is probably going to be back this week. You've got Bryant. You've got Ingram, who's a wide receiver. And Troutman can still catch the occasional dump-off pass and outlet pass. So in terms of the overall volume of pass catchers, Denver's got a better core. But, yeah, in terms of having a pure, like, number 1 alpha pass-catching threat like Brock Bowers, no, I'll be the first one to tell you Denver does not have that.
Oh, I definitely agree. It's just, but, so, I mean, I'd be lying to say if I wouldn't take a Brock Bowers. I mean, obviously, Brock Bowers is like the best tight end in all of football. It's just, it was just, I had to take a jab, obviously. But I mean, I just think that, when you think Courtland Sutton, because I agree with you relative to the Broncos offense. And I think we need to phrase it that way.
Yes.
Relative to the Broncos offense, Courtland Sutton is a wide receiver 1. That does not mean, and I don't know how often we've said this, that does not mean he's actually a wide receiver 1.
Right.
But he's a wide receiver 1 with us. And as fate would have it, and in Sean Payton's coaching fate would have it, he, for all intents and purposes, fits exactly the kind of wide receiver that Sean Payton has worked with his entire career. So you just got to live with it. And I think that it's going to get to the point career-wise as a Bronco and with Bronco fans, he is going to be such an overhated and just underrated Denver Bronco when it comes to its history, because by season's end and career end, he might end up with more yards than Demaryius Thomas. Yep. Just think about that for a second.
Now, Jack, with the Wild Wild West and all the shows I comment on, I am as fair as I can be when it comes to Raiders, Broncos, Chiefs, Chargers. So looking at this game, I'm going to try to be as fair as I can, right? Because obviously I'm a Broncos fan. But when you look at the Raiders offense and when you look at the Broncos defense, there is a very, very big mismatch, right? Like Denver's got top 5, if not top 3 defense in the league. The Raiders have one of the worst offensive lines in the league. The Raiders have an average running game at best. The Raiders also
line issue.
Right. The Raiders also have one of the worst passing offenses in the league as well. And that also is an offensive line issue. You don't give Gino any time, he's going to throw picks, right? But you truly only have, the Raiders only have one pass catching threat, and that is Brock Bowers.
Yep.
And the problem with that is that Denver has such a good secondary that even if you triple teamed Brock Bowers, we still would have enough to cover everybody else.
Yeah.
Right. So that's where, like, full respect to the Raider fans and like how much crap you've been taking over the last 30 years. But when you look at this game, like, there's a lot of people like, oh, trap game. Trap games are when, like, you overlook an opponent, but they're good enough to beat you. I'm sorry, but the Raiders are not good enough to beat the Broncos. They're just not.
These are the Raiders wide receivers right now. You've got a geriatric Tyler Lockett. You've got Trey Tucker, who does worry me a little bit. He can do some damage. I will acknowledge that. You've got Jack Besh, who has got some potential, but again, hasn't really showed it much at the NFL level. Same thing with Dante Thornton, has potential, has shown some flashes, but he's somebody that I think our corners can shut down. And then you've got Alex Bachman, who I only vaguely know that name. So, yeah, outside of Brock Bowers and to an extent Michael Mayer as well, like, this Raiders pass-catching core doesn't scare me.
Well, it's really Brock Bowers and Ashton Genty. That's just the offense and I think that in a game like this, or to be honest, any Raider game of late when it comes to the Raiders and the Broncos is, it comes down to its history. And for me, going into this game, the Brock Bowers is going to be the biggest thing. But if there is one thing we know about the Broncos and and the Raiders, Max Crosby does always have good games against the Denver Broncos. So Garrett Bowles and Mike McGlinchey, and we know that Crosby has owned McGlinchey in the past. If you want to actually prove that you are a top offensive line, or you want to prove that you are the protector of the year, and I would argue you blocked your tail off better against even players that are on par or just a tick lower than Crosby in Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter and the Houston Texans game. You have to do that with Crosby. If you can continue your trend and you continue the trend of no sacks, which, by the way, and I know it's Pro Football Focus, according to 80% of the dropbacks, Garrett Bowles and Mike McGlinchey lead the entire NFL in 0 sacks allowed. So if you want to keep that trend up, don't allow Max Crosby to beat you. Do not allow Max Crosby to beat you.
This game is won and lost in the trenches, man. That's the mere fact of the matter. And with Max Crosby, Denver's going to have to throw all of their resources at neutralizing him. He's going to get his wins. Best believe that. He's probably going to get a sack or two in this game. But if you can at least neutralize him and limit the damage that he can do, there's not a whole lot else on this Raiders defense that they have to work with. This is a really bad defense, especially in the secondary. So, hell, at this point, triple team Max Crosby, and I'm not really worried about a whole lot of other players on that defense, especially their pass rush. So, yeah, I think it's going to be happy days for this Broncos offense, and it's going to look a lot closer to what we've seen against the Cowboys. But I will stipulate it's a Thursday night game, short week, division opponent. We've seen so many of these games under those circumstances this year, and almost all of them have been fucky. Like, they've had some weirdness going on. They've been crazy games, closer than they should be. So there's always that Thursday night element to it. But the Broncos are a really good team. They're a fringe Super Bowl team, and the Raiders are a fringe number 1 overall pick team. So, again, this really shouldn't be a close game. The Broncos should kick their ass.
And
I was just going to agree with Gage, because that's exactly what I was thinking. Is that, we sit here and we complain about what the heck is going on with the first 3 quarters and the offense. But when you look at the Raiders, it really is more like the Dallas Cowboy game, right? Like, we had no issues on offense there. We scored in every single quarter. We scored over 40 points. This is going to be one of those games. And while I know that like in division games are always tough, and they're always played tough, there comes a point in time where you have to look back at how they've matched up in the past to how they match up this year, right? And the matchup this year is not great for the Raiders.
No, it's not. And if you're a big fan of aesthetics, the Broncos just don't lose in throwbacks, and they're wearing throwbacks on Thursday night.
Under
and
the
they're
lights, baby.
And it's under lights. And the Broncos, as of late, just have not lost at home. They have not lost at home. And I think that is a big culture set, that this team is set. And frankly, I'm expecting a big Dre Greenlaw game. That is actually what I'm expecting. I'm expecting a huge Dre Greenlaw game to where this is something, when you talk about a culture setter for the entire defense, it is something that this team has lacked, and it is something that this team has missed. And I think that when you have a linebacker specifically that can set the tone in the middle of the field and truly become that enforcer of the middle part of the field, where if there's a wide receiver coming in and that ball's right on his chest and he lets him know about it with a huge hit in the middle part of the field, that is the kind of stuff that the Broncos have right now in both Talanoa Hufanga, Dre Greenlaw, and then even other parts of the safety room. So like the fact is that you have this setting up to where it's going to be a physical game, which sets up for the Broncos. I mean, it is just one where I would just be weary in the fact that, it's just like, I don't know. If I'm the Raiders, I would hope that we could be seeing a little bit more chunk plays, because that is like, if we're going to be nitpicky, that is the area of the Broncos defense that is a bit leaky. I think they lead the entire NFL in like the amount of 40 yards, or like they're in the top 3 as far as 40 yards giving up. A lot of that's Alex Singleton, by the way. But but I mean, they lead the NFL in like a lot of 40 yards. So if you're going to be a little bit nitpicky, they do that. And so the Broncos at least have to mitigate the amount of 40-yard plays and just, really be a stifling defense.
Yeah, I think, and I know, Gage, you're not going to give your prediction because you got your own thing. But
I pretty much already did.
Yeah, I'm going to go Broncos 35, Raiders 17, and I think the majority of those Raider points are scored in the fourth quarter when our starters are benched.
I'm pretty much right where you are, Mike. Like, I'm not going to give the numbers, but I'm pretty much right where you are.
Yeah, I'm expecting this to be, probably a double-digit win, 28-17. Like it's going to be one that I think it's going to start out competitive, and then the Broncos are going to just really pull away, which frankly has been the games that the Broncos and Raiders have had. So the other side of this too is, like, I know it's a 28-17. Don't be surprised, right? Like, so Moose River Hummer brings up, it is still the Raiders, it's still a division game. Like, we still need to mention that. Like, division games are often like a separate part of this as far as a conference game. So as much as we talk about the Raiders as a lesser opponent, one, we're Bronco fans and they're Raiders fans, so of course we're going to be talking about it as if they're rivals and lesser opponents. But like, division games do bring out the best in teams, best in, and when it's a primetime game, I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if it's a much closer game to where it's like 21-17 or something like that, and a Broncos win. But it's just, it's one where the division games just carry so much more weight, even if it's in conference. They just carry so much more weight than they do even as a conference game.
Another thing, too, is a lot of people on this Raiders team, they're fighting for their jobs right now. Like, Pete Carroll might be fighting for his job right now. I've heard some rumblings that Mark Davis is not happy, and we all know that he's got a quick trigger sometimes. Additionally, you've got Geno Smith, who has not been playing well this year, and Aiden O'Connell is back from his wrist injury. He should be active for this game. So now Geno's got AOC breathing down his neck here, and if he doesn't play well, we could see a quarterback change there in Las Vegas. there's a sense of urgency there. And this is a Pete Carroll coach team. They know the stakes at hand, and they have been sloppy at times this year, but generally I will trust Pete Carroll to be organized and ready to go. So I read an article, Jack, on The Athletic yesterday that said that Mark Davis is not happy with where this is going right now. And yeah, man, it's Mark Davis, so you never know with him.
Well, and I look, age is just a number, but you do have to factor in Pete is, in his 70s.
87,000 years old.
He is in his 70s, and I agree. I don't think they do let him go, but you do factor in, and with specifically how this season has gone, you do have to maybe ask the question. Maybe not now. And it's funny because we're having this conversation now, but I just think it's one like near the end of the season, and this kind of stuff is continuing to happen. It's just something that probably worth having maybe in the back of your head, as the season's progressing, because they might move on from him.
Yeah.
By the way, something too, that made me think of this, and just regarding the Broncos defense, the Broncos have not the defense has not allowed a touchdown in 4 quarters. Right? Is that what it is?
5, I think.
5?
Oh, no, they did have a garbage time one against Dallas.
They did have one, but still, that's an impressive stat, and then they might continue even more it's just sorry. Was it yeah? I think that sounds right. I'll have to go look it up. Make sure I'm accurate on that. But
no, and I also would like to throw in that it's pretty clear that Tom Brady is great on the field, not so great in the ownership booth.
I also think there's a bit of some
conflicts.
Conflicts.
Conflicts. All right. Did we cover everything? I think we did.
I think we did, man.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, we want to thank everybody for joining us in the show, except for Glenn, because you weren't here. You get nothing. But make sure you head on over to the MHRT Network, like, subscribe, hit the thumbs up on the videos. We have shows Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then the neighborhood on game days. So make sure you tune into that on Thursday. We also want to make sure you head over to Broncos Syndicate on YouTube, hosted by Gage Madrid. He has all of the Broncos news every day, multiple times a day. Depends on what news happens, but there's all kinds of Broncos-related stuff over there, so make sure you check that out. Cameron Parker hosts mainly Broncos on Wednesday nights on the MHRT Network, so make sure you check that out as well, and hit the like, subscribe, and thumbs up on all those videos, all those channels. We would greatly appreciate it. We love the Broncos. We love Broncos countries. We'll see you guys later. Peace!
Fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Tempo's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up.